All right, let's dive right in. I want you to picture something. Imagine a country, an empire, really, that loses 90% of its territory, practically overnight. A global superpower just gone, left for dead after World War I. Now fast forward to today. Picture that same country. It's now richer per person than Germany, and its quality of life, it's the envy of pretty much the entire world.
I mean, the transformation is just staggering. On one side, you've got the total ruins of an empire back in 1919, facing starvation. On the other, a modern powerhouse where, get this, more than half the people in its capital city live in high-quality, subsidized housing. The contrast? I mean, it just couldn't be more extreme.
So you gotta ask, right? How on earth did they pull this off? How does a small, landlocked country in the Alps, a place totally written off by history, become one of the wealthiest and most stable economies on the entire planet? It sounds like a magic trick.
Well, to solve this puzzle, we're going to break down Austria's pretty unique formula into 5 key parts. We'll look at their incredibly clever post-war rebranding, then we'll dive into their quiet economic machine, a huge geopolitical jackpot they hit, the secret sauce to their high quality of life, and finally, the potential trap all this success might have created.
Okay, so let's start at the beginning, with the very foundation of all this. Austria's success really kicks off with what you could argue is the greatest geopolitical sleight of hand in modern history. Believe it or not, it all hinged on the power of a single sentence. See, back in 1943, the Allies officially called Austria Hitler's first victim. Now, we all know history is a little more complicated. There were huge, enthusiastic crowds welcoming the Nazis in 1938. But after the war, Austrian politicians clung to this victim narrative for dear life. And the result? It was a game changer. They completely dodged the crippling war reparations that Germany had to pay. They basically got to start with a clean slate.
So here's the game plan they followed. First, they got a ton of Marshall Plan aid from the US, the highest per person in Europe actually, because the Americans were terrified they'd fall to communism. Second, they took that cash and used it to nationalize all these huge industrial assets the Germans had built on their land. And third, to finally get the Soviets to pack up and leave in 1955, they paid what was basically a massive ransom in goods and oil. So think about it. American money rebuilt their entire industry, and paying off the Soviets bought them the freedom to join the Western economy. Pretty smart.
Okay, so they managed to get a fresh start, but a clean slate is one thing. You still have to build the economic engine, right? Well, the answer to how they did that lies in a system that is so boring, it's actually brilliant. Yeah, this quote just nails it. It's all about something they call the social partnership. Basically, instead of constantly fighting, labor unions and business owners decided to just work together. They created this whole system where all the big economic decisions get hashed out behind closed doors before they ever even get to Parliament. The class war was pretty much canceled and replaced with a meeting. And the result of this system is just astonishing. You look at countries like France or the UK, and they were constantly being crippled by strikes. Austria's bar on this chart, it's practically invisible. We're talking some years where they literally have just seconds of strike time. What that means for business is an incredibly stable, predictable environment where you can invest and grow without worrying about shutdowns.
But what were these businesses actually making? Well, Austria was smart. They knew they couldn't go head-to-head with giants like Germany or the US on mass-produced stuff. So they went a different route. They decided to become hidden champions. And the strategy is brilliantly simple. Don't try to make everything. Instead, pick one highly complex, super specialized industrial product, become the absolute best in the world at it, and just dominate that one little niche.
And the funny thing is, you've almost certainly used their products without ever knowing it. Ever been on a ski lift? Big chance it was made by Doppelmayr. Seen one of those crazy high-tech fire trucks at a major airport? Probably a Rosenbauer. And of course, there's the Glock handgun, a multi-billion-dollar empire that came from this exact mindset of hyper-specialized, world-class engineering. You know, they don't make the car, they make that one critical part that every single car company on Earth has to buy from them. So the next piece of this puzzle wasn't some clever internal strategy. No, it was a massive, history-changing opportunity that just landed right on their doorstep.
Think about this. On November 8, 1989, Austria was stuck on the edge of Western Europe, a geopolitical dead end. The very next day, November 9th, The Berlin Wall falls, and bam! They are suddenly smack in the center of a new, unified Europe. And while other countries were still figuring out what happened, Austrian banks, using all their old historical connections from the empire, just stormed into the former Eastern Bloc. They bought up state-owned banks for pennies on the dollar. They were the ones issuing the first credit cards, financing these new capitalist economies. Just like that, Vienna was back to being the economic capital of Central Europe.
Okay, so the country's rich, the companies are rich, but what about the average person walking down the street? How does all that national wealth actually translate into personal well-being for you and me?
Well, check out this number, because it's almost unbelievable. 60%. In Vienna, the city itself is the biggest landlord in the world. And we're not talking about grim, depressing public housing here. No, this is high-quality, beautiful housing for the middle class with strict rent controls. It's a legacy that goes way back to the Red Vienna movement in the 1920s.
Just think about the real-world impact of that for a second. An average person living in Vienna pays a tiny fraction of their income in rent compared to someone trying to get by in, say, London or New York. What does that mean? It means they have way more disposable income at the end of the month. It's like this massive hidden wealth effect that keeps the cost of living down and pushes the quality of life way, way up. And the other pillar of this high-quality life, you could call it Alpine oil. See, Austria didn't just have beautiful mountains. They industrialized them. They turned the Alps into this high-tech, year-round factory for tourism and leisure, and it contributes a huge 15% to their GDP. It's like a giant wealth pump, taking money from tourists all over the world and pumping it directly into these rural, remote regions. It's why some of Austria's richest areas are actually miles away from any big city.
But, and there's always a but, right? Here's the twist. This incredibly successful, super comfortable system has accidentally created a whole new set of problems that are now threatening its very future.
At the heart of it is a ticking demographic time bomb. Austria has one of the most generous pension systems on the planet. I mean, it replaces about 80% of a person's lifetime average income. Compare that to Germany's 48%, it's huge. Now, that is fantastic if you're a retiree, but with an aging population and fewer young people paying in, it's just mathematically unsustainable.
And this creates what you could call a set of golden handcuffs. You need really high taxes on labor to pay for those generous pensions, but those high taxes discourage young entrepreneurs from starting new businesses. The whole culture starts to value safety and comfort over taking risks, and the result of that? A lot of ambitious young Austrians are just packing their bags and leaving for places like Switzerland or Germany, creating this slow, steady brain drain.
Which brings us to the final big question. Look, there's no doubt Austria absolutely mastered the 20th century economy. They did it by prioritizing stability, quality, and comfort above all else. And they built a system that gives its citizens a really, truly good life. But here's the thing. In a 21st century world that seems to prize speed, disruption, and risk, is that fortress of comfort still a brilliant model for the rest of us to follow? Or has it become a beautiful golden cage?